So people's main knock on Bitcoin is it's not a currency, and they're right. Because Bitcoin's a digital reserve, so it's similar to the role the U.S. dollar plays in the world economy, or similar to the way the role gold plays if it was more like actually used in today's economy. In theory, the market cap for Bitcoin could be as high as probably $50 to $100 trillion, which is a lot, but it's not like out of this world. The U.S. dollar circulates like 26. I think it's something like it's like $500 trillion or like a quadrillion, something like that. It's crazy. Like the currency exchange market right now, just for normal government currencies, trades like $6.7 quadrillion per week in volume per week.
That's crazy.
It's big. It's the biggest market in the world. I'd hammer that home because it's the biggest market in the world. And Bitcoin and like cryptocurrency in general kind of it doesn't revolutionize that, but it's another player in that. It's just another form of currency that's kind of better than a government formed currency. But anyway, it's not a very good actual currency, so you can't really transact with it all that well, but it still does play a role without it being a currency at all. It's great for a reserve. It's great to store your money in. And it's probably what the digital economy is going to store their money in, like the metaverse and Web3 and all those cool new quirky techs that aren't really quite available to the market yet.
Okay.
It's what all those currencies are going to be built upon. Obviously, I could get into that because it's also super interesting to me.
Okay.
Like, I guess like a quick 30-second summary of like what the metaverse is probably going to look like. There are three main technologies. There's Web3, which is what the back end is going to look like. There's virtual reality, which is what we're going to use to interact with it. And there's cryptocurrency and blockchain and that sort of thing. And that's where we're going to store our data, and that's where we're going to use our money. It's basically, those are the three core technologies associated with what the internet is going to look like in 20 years.
Okay.
We're probably not going to be walking around. Actually, we might be walking around in like 20 years with virtual reality contact lenses with processing power in our pocket. Like our phone isn't going to be used as like a scroll device. It's going to be like a mini computer. Yeah.
Well, I've talked about I actually think it's. Yeah, I don't know. I've said before that kind of stuff is actually useful, like to an extent.
Well, think about it.
Well, think about the internet right now. It's too subverted and decentralized and uncontrollable. It's like, okay, free speech is legislated in the town hall. You can't get around that. Create a new town hall, or public square, I think is the term. I mean, that's the internet, that's social media, that's Twitter. That's centrally controlled by one guy, the guy who invented the technology, or the group of 4 or 5 people who invented the technology. So if the metaverse is like that, that's scary. If
now
we can control that technology.
Now we're going to get into something that I'm very
If rights exist in a technology, that technology has to be like
Hear me out.
controllable, right?
Yeah, they do. But who controls? Is it another form of government, or is it the government?
It would have to be the same way it would just have to be inalienable the same way it is with constitutional rights.
You want me to blow your mind?
What?
So right now, there's this concept called a DAO. I'll give you the acronym. It's a decentralized, autonomous organization. And basically, the whole point of them is to take every centralized company, in quotations, and move them to the point where they're decentralized. So people can vote on what they want to suppress freely and openly, and 70-30 majority get the right to suppress. So whereas now one company can suppress somebody else's political beliefs.
You get to vote on who to suppress?
Yeah.
That's fucking so stupid.
Why?
That's true democracy.
Yeah.
What are you
I
talking
gotta
about?
tell you, like, in some ways, decentralized autonomous states.
Yeah, you can't
are-
vote on suppression.
Well-
There's no suppression. That's how it's supposed to work.
He's right, but
there
here's
wouldn't
my.
be
I'm gonna say
suppression in
two
this.
things.
Yeah,
Because nobody
no.
would vote 70-30 to get
What are
to
you
suppress
talking
other
about?
people.
That's not true.
That might be
So-
true, but I'm gonna say two things.
No, history dictates that true
Yeah,
democracy
well, yeah, and I'm
fails
actually gonna give an
and
example.
people get suppressed. Go.
So for one thing, that's actually very like that sort of decentralized autonomous like state structure is really intriguing, but the way it was actually put into place once in history, it was put into place in where is that place? Iceland.
Mhm.
Iceland. They were independent for a long time, and they had an autonomous government which had very little vested power in the state whatsoever.
Mhm.
Like, for instance, the state had almost no power. At most, all it could do is legalize murdering you. That was like the biggest punishment they could dole out.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was an extraordinarily, and it's a very, it actually provides like a lot of guidelines for how to structure laws that don't require military force vested in a central authority. And it's really interesting, but it didn't work.
Mhm.
Why not?
And what?
Why not?
Why? Because it,
Like what happened?
what happened is they gradually split the people. They split into, groups,
Yeah.
and they
Tribalism
developed
overtakes.
tribalism, and they developed their own social hierarchies so that
North versus South.
they
Happened
developed their
to
own
us.
social hierarchies so that you would end up with these like clans who would control large amounts of the country, and eventually became more like
Yeah.
feudalistic, and there was a ludicrous amount of bloody infighting, and eventually the country just kind of fell
Yeah,
apart.
true democracy doesn't work.
But-
You have to have republics. Like, if it's true democracy, it always falls to tribalism and then feudalism.
This is true, and there's actually a reason for it. And the main thing here about republics is there's two distinctions that make republics different from democracies. Because republics are generally, they are democracies. They're a specific
Yeah,
type of
truth
democracy.
can't be articulated by just mass numbers. Like, truth is, like,
Abject.
it's exactly.
Yeah,
So you
okay.
can't, if
Yeah,
you
you're
vote
right.
70-30, you can suppress truth. It
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
So the two things that make republics different is one of them, republics have representation, but that's not the important thing here. The important thing is that republics have like representation rather than direct voting. But the important thing is that republics have like constitutions and laws, and they rely upon constitutions and laws, and was not super present in Iceland, and it's like that's something where you'd want to look at Iceland and be like, okay, if you want to try autonomous states again,
Yeah.
you need constitutions
Yeah.
and legal practices, and you can't just,
Ben, hold your mouth.
because if you go, and this is what Ted's saying, is that if you go with the bottom up,
Yep.
because there's actually, knowledge goes in two ways. It goes bottom up, which is called deduction,
Yeah.
and it goes top down, which is called induction,
Inductive.
right? Because so you make decisions and generalize those. You make decisions from the bottom up, and then you generalize those decisions into abstract principles, and then the abstract principles govern decisions there on out. That's the inductive process, and the reason that's necessary is because it reduces subjectivity in decision making, and subjectivity in decision making is such an impossible thing to reduce that it's very important.
So, you actually brought up an interesting point, which, well, I guess to bring it like back into like what I was talking about, not to like do that, but basically, essentially how like decentralized autonomous organizations work is you write all the rules in the beginning, and they are followed until the organization dies. So
well, that's what America is with the Constitution. And
Yeah.
it's like,
but it's not a true democracy in the sense that they can just destroy anything, because there's a certain set of protocols that they have to follow, and they're all written in the beginning, and they can't be changed no matter what you do. So all of the rules and the governance structures are decided in the beginning. And essentially what's going to happen is there's going to be a form that these organizations take that works.
Well, the rule book is written poorly because the rule book what's the word? Necessitates being truly democratic, which falls. So it's like it can't work.
Well, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
but these things don't have life cycles as long as governments do.
So what you're saying is the abstract principles evolve as the autonomous entities compete with each other.
Yeah.
That
So if there is
I'm
a
gonna
perfect way
say
to solve the problem, capitalism
God,
will do it.
libertarians would say that. No offense, I don't know if you're a libertarian or not. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's, I want to hear it. Yeah.
Okay, so if you set up an anarchic practice, they devolve into strict hierarchies and oligarchies very quickly as a general rule. So
They just don't work.
if you say the abstract principles are governed outside of the collectives by the competition between the collectives, then I would have to expect that would function a lot. And I think so because these collectives have real world power, right? They control organizations, so they have real world power. So I'd have to expect that would function a lot like competing nations.
Yeah, I was going to say
life.
it's like countries on a global scale.
And countries on a
On
global
an economic scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think because what I can see happening really quickly is I can see a couple of collectives
China,
coming to
yeah.
dominate the sort of global market really quickly.
Yeah, like
That is true.
which
then it's-
happens in the global market now. China,
which happens in real
EU,
life, you know.
Yeah.
America.
And
But-
That's not
The-
like awful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like a necessarily bad thing, but the thing about these things and the reason that they're demonized is because that there's like a person or like a group of people that gain power. And in
It's
this
literally like
case,
a subsect of the world. You have the Illuminati at the top.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, in theory anyway, the protocol would govern itself, right? So it would be like a self-improving thing without any actual human input. So if it functions like an organization, then like say when like stock of a store hits this level, it automatically buys more, and the store functions without any people present. The store functions with no owners as well. And the way these organizations would work is you would invest your purchasing power in them and it would grow, but you have no gain in power. You just have gain in asset appreciation. So like it's a good structure to like reduce power and to like reduce like in theory a tyranny. But it doesn't necessarily increase power to have more purchasing power. It does, but it doesn't directly through that organization.
So it sort of like offloads like power to like an algorithmic entity.
A preset,
That's not that much different from having laws.
Yeah.
yeah, like a preset thing or like a preset algorithm, not algorithm, like a preset set of rules
Yeah.
that's publicly available, that can be audited by an outside person, and you should be auditing, that can't be changed or rewritten, and the people inside of the organization wouldn't gain any more power in the organization if it were to go up in value. So let's say you write a game, that game probably wouldn't have any updates to it, which is why there's still room for like centralized authorities in that marketplace. But there are certain use cases for this technology, like let's say, I don't know, like what's a real estate almost, like what's there, I can't think of a specific industry offhand, but something that you only make once and something that requires very little to no upkeep to maintain that couldn't be automated. So like, I don't know, like
cars before they were crap.
Yeah, like manufacturing.
Yeah.
Like you just have a manufacturing plant, you get a contract with a company, it automatically makes the cars for you, produces them. While it may leave people jobless, you wouldn't necessarily need a job in its current sense in that economy, because the same output is still getting done with less input, meaning people would have to work less, which is why everybody's saying that this technological utopia that people are talking about, like 2100, there's an actual path for that to happen, but you can also look at it as being the technological dystopia, where nobody knows what they want to do with their lives.
Well, yeah, it has to be, because utopia doesn't exist.
Yeah, dystopia doesn't exist either. It's going to be somewhere in the middle.
Dystopia does.
It only depends on how you define dystopia, I guess. But
yeah, like
utopia.
Like utopia is also open to interpretation.
Utopia, I would say though, in the concept, like if you mean utopia to mean a good place, but there is no there's no final place. That's the big thing that you have to remember. Communism can't do it. Fascism can't do it. They both present these ideas that if we do something, we will we'll be done. We'll be in a perfect place. You know what I mean? If we utopianism is a real thing, and it's a little bit intangible, but it's not a good thing whenever it pops up, because utopianism is actually religious imagery. It's essentially, because that's what it becomes. Utopianism divorces from reality and brings in religious imagery. Yeah. And that's not a good thing to bring into an ideology.
Yeah, it's not an ideology. It's just a it's like the absolute best case scenario for this technology.
So
but it's not going to be reality.
How does this pertain to civil rights, like Ted was talking about?
How does it pertain to civil rights? What do you mean by that?
Ted, we brought this up when Ted was talking about protecting people's rights in the
yeah. So basically, you could write a protocol. Let's say it was an internet chat forum. You run a certain amount of ads on it to keep the network alive, or you incentivize them with a cryptocurrency, and the network just keeps functioning, and it can be changed or altered. And the only rule for this forum is that nothing can be changed about it. No source code, no bugs, no add-ons. And if it functions perfectly, then there's no way to change it. And in essence, it would be almost like the perfect social media with no censorship whatsoever. And you could write that and you could make that into a reality. And you could do that today. If you learn basic coding, you would know how to do that. You can make that. It could be a live website. And the civil rights would basically be up to the people who wrote the source code. And while people may adopt things that take away from their civil rights, over the course of a long enough time horizon, they're going to realize that it's taking away their civil rights, and there are better things available, especially in a capitalistic economic model. And they're going to switch to those things over the course of a long enough time. So basically, the concept of civil rights is up to the person who made it.
They established their own
technology, right?
Well, I don't like the idea that the civil rights are up to whoever makes it.
I think the idea is that the civil right models compete with each other.
Yeah.
But
maybe it doesn't work.
I also don't think. I think things need to evolve.
Yeah.
Well, I think things need to evolve.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Over the course of a long enough time horizon, at the end of the day, it's a technology, and really, in the perfect world, everything from civil rights to economic rights would compete on sort of a pure capitalistic model, in terms of people would choose whether or not they want civil rights.
Yeah, okay, that seems to make sense. So it's literally like countries ran over again but instead of millions of years, second by second, technologically,
But
that's like literally kind of what we're doing, which is scary.
yeah, well,
Holy crap!
it's not like it's gonna outpace natural development. The reason it goes quickly is because we have natural development to work off of.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Here's I'm gonna throw this one out here.
Okay.
Okay, this. So it's all, I guess, over the interface of like coding technology, right?
Yeah.
What about AI?
Yeah.
Like, so it theoretically could be subverted by like a computer consciousness.
No, because the human would still have to choose to use the AI program, and AI does play a role in that. But if an AI could code better than a human and know a human or know what a human wants better than a human, it would outpace a human. But it would be it would block that AI from doing something malicious because there's no way it can change its previous protocol. No way it can change its previous code. I have to throw the protocol term in there for a second time.
well,
It's just a technology at the end of the day.
we can talk about AI. AI is a whole separate thing,
like
and I don't.
aliens did this and that created us.
Dude, imagine
That's
Satoshi
literally what I'm
Nakamoto's an
thinking.
alien.
Huh?
Imagine Satoshi Nakamoto's an alien. He just imports Bitcoin from
No,
like
but seriously, this
like a
literally
spaceship.
sounds like we're creating an equation that tests out how people deal with economies, which is essentially what countries are.
Yeah. It's a better way, in essence, or at least that's the bet.
I don't know. It just seems
with
to me
this
like,
tech.
like
Yeah,
it's like
it's good to
all-
be
I don't
skeptical.
trust. Yeah,
I don't trust it all.
and I
Like,
am
it's
with that
totally
because-
like in this realm of like, first of all, anything that's a realm of chaos. It's like there's a gap of understanding with coding, which is always scary when there's people that understand it better, like Zuckerberg and Bezos. Really,
Well, yeah.
not cool people. And then also it's all like woven in this like land of technology, and I just think that like Google searches all create and build like a giant essential like centralized intelligence that understands human behavior down to every last Snapchat. Seems like it could be subverted by that.
Yeah, it
An
could.
artificial intelligence that
But at the end
knows
of
us better than we know us.
Well,
yeah, it's a bet on whether.
so we can
yeah.
talk about. I think AI is kind of a separate conversation a little bit, but here's my.
And again, this isn't like not to interrupt, but this is like, that's the utopia that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's not what it's going to look like in reality. Just like the philosophy of Bitcoin isn't what it looks like in reality. It's not this perfect thing.
Okay.
But it's a technology at the end of the day. It
Yeah.
made some good strides forward, and it's brought something new and better, and society rewarded it for it. Yeah.
So here's what here's what I think about autonomous organizations set up as like static entities. Is that they're static, right? Because they sound pretty static. They don't change, right?
You could change it if you wrote the protocol like that.
If you wrote the protocol so that it could change.
Yeah.
Well, how would that work?
Well, basically, you couldn't change you could change the source code because you could update the source code, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah, like those exist already. Like in cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
there's a currency called Ethereum, and Bitcoin as well. And basically what they do is they have a self-updating thing where community members vote. So like each crypto wallet address votes on a particular decision, and that's how you would update a network like that. This is a way to not do that.
Yeah.
So that it couldn't be corrupted.
So yeah, it's cool to have static laws, and that actually that took a while to be developed. It's also worth saying that in reality, both in reality and in metaphoric countries, statically set up societies will be outpaced by ones that aren't static. So like, if you have.
So like,
there's going to be things that happen that can't be foreseen at any given point.
Yeah.
So if you have a chat board that isn't updated very much, like it can't be updated very much because it's written with like a strict sort of static guideline, then
it could be disrupted.
Well, then the changing needs of the market and changing technologies or anything like that, or just changing political climates could make those chat forums obsolete really quickly, whereas traditional companies that have full freedom to change themselves as much as they want, like Facebook or whatever, would outpace them.
But if that's the only thing that you're concerned about, you could make that right now. Like if you're only concerned about nobody at all ever should be able to censor me, that can be created for the first time in history.
Yeah, you can still set up like top level, like essentially, constitution level laws.
Yeah,
right?
so what you need is a constitution, but the problem is constitutions always get undone.
But they can't be changed. Like there's a certain like a constitution could be undone if like a new government was in place, similar to like how a protocol could change if a new company came and took all their business. But that protocol can't be changed at all, the one that it's written with.
So I think we're actually approaching something here, which is that, because like we talk about this stuff, but what's the ethical justification for it is like, really when you look at it like this, whenever a company creates a platform, right, which is like, the platform begins to act like a nation, like the platform. So like, because you gotta answer the question of like, where did it go from just having companies doing their interest as companies will do to having companies be tyrannical? It's like, well, why are they tyrannical now? Because they were always just doing their own thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think really when you create a platform like an area where people interact freely, not with no intention to interact with the companies, really. Like, because if you're interacting on YouTube, you're just interacting with other people. You're not interacting with YouTube really. Yeah. So when you have this internal network with the capacity to grow indefinitely, I guess he's got some opinions on this. With the capacity to grow indefinitely, it begins to act essentially like a nation, or they become a population with particular rights, because it becomes a space, right? It becomes a space, and people are free in all spaces. I don't know. I'm trying to explain this because it's an important thing that we're just kind of
glossed over.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like there's like the constitutions in history seem to have like a 250-ish year time limit.
Well, nothing
based on Rome and America.
Anything has a time limit.
Longer than that, but
no,
not yet. But it's not going to collapse in the next 4 years.
We're already taking away the Second Amendment and First Amendment now.
Yeah, but it's not the Roman Empire fell in 250 years. It didn't have any power really, and the U.S. isn't just going to go from how much power it has now to no power in 4 years. I would argue
that is true.
Anyway.
It's always a very steady decline. I mean, the Roman Republic lasted quite a while.
Yeah.
But the Roman Empire lasted 500 years longer than that. So.
Yeah, but like we'll have we'll be an empire and we'll have power, but we won't really be a republic soon.
Yeah. Well, we'll
that's
get to that point
mutable.
when we come to it, and if we're already
well,
there,
the point is like, okay, you're saying these rules are unchangeable and they're similar to Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
The constitutional rules are unchangeable, but they are changing.
Yes.
Well, look, all orders decline.
So it's like, how do we stop that from happening in this virtual thing?
Well, you can't.
You can't, because all orders do corrupt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, you just try and make orders not corrupt quickly.
Yeah, so.
And then like you
and
have
the difference between like a nation falling and this falling is there's no bloodshed. There's nobody who really loses anything besides investors who lose their money.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens over the course of a long time. What happens is people just gradually switch to something that works better in that current time horizon, with no like bloodshed, no death, no like seizure of property.
seizure of property.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that happens a lot
Yeah.
when republics fall.
Yeah.
Like Star Wars. Fucking love Star Wars. Anyway, I think we're about done with this Tao talk.
Ben, you got any points?
Not that I remember really.
It's just a cool technology, you know what I mean? It's not like this is gonna change the way we interact with each other, like AI or VR will. And this is just like a building block, essentially. It's a big one.
It just seems
Well, I think
subvertible for some reason. Right? It seems like it's just easily controlled by an entity that can.
But how do you
overrun the
control it?
codes. I don't know. It just seems like the.
Well, the whole point of developing these is so that they can be controlled. That's like the entire point.
I know, but it seems to run at a really fast scale, right? Okay, the whole point of America was to create a country that can't be subverted or overtaken by control, right? And it takes 200 years to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But these things are like that process, like really fast, sped up. So as far as I can tell, it's gonna like look really, really good. More and more people are gonna invest, and then it's gonna collapse. It's like a really bad bubble.
Well, the only way you make like a society not corruptible is to make it static.
Yeah.
So like
and then
that's
they get outpaced.
Yeah.
And actually, they corrupt too because changing technologies can introduce ways to take advantage of systems,
Yeah.
even if the systems don't change.
Yeah, that's true.
So basically, we're betting that like people will support the better ones.
Yes.
And, like when. Okay. But if you look at the span of history, that's not a good bet.
That's not a great bet. No, I
bad
think
bet.
you're going to need quickly evolving countries. I don't think a static country is just going to have much of a chance here. They just won't be able to keep up with the market.
Like, I'm just being skeptical. That's a bad bet.
and this technology can be implemented while improving too. That's just that was just like a way to define a way to not make it corruptible.
Yep.
You could also improve the protocol by introducing a way of making it corruptible, but also improving. Ooh. Should we take a look at should we talk about the childhood origins of serial killers? Why Jeffrey Dahmer came and killed a bunch of ladies?
I guess quick.
I'm not feeling that actually. You guys didn't seem too thrilled about that.
Jesus Christ.
You don't think aliens are real?
Nope.
Why
'Cause
not?
The Hollywood tells you they are. That's all you gotta know. Pretty simple.
All right, so the universe is ever expanding, right?
Maybe.
According to every scientific model that's generally accepted by the population of free-thinking scientists that are controlled by institutions.
Yep.
Like, according to all of them, according to all of them, our current model
COVID kills people, you have to wear a mask.
All right, well, our current model of space is that it's ever expanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't a good way to explain the fact that there are a bunch of stars in the sky, and the way they move
Makes them turn kind of reddish when they're lining
Okay,
up.
I'll
Without
say
the universe
this. I don't
expanding.
believe UFOs with little gray guys exist. Just because of the idea that it's-
Hollywood tells that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to think that's the case.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Whatever Hollywood tells you is like for a negative reason.
Okay.
It's like that can be a weird, strange like way of representing something. What it could represent is like a chaotic, in the literal sense, alien force.
Yeah.
Like something strange and different and is chaotic.
Yeah, I think most of the time when people see grays, they just kind of like I think it's usually psychological, and they're usually putting grays because they've seen grays in movies, so they just use grays as an image they can use.
Yeah, I would say it's more than likely like actual demons. I think it's more than likely.
No,
Hold on,
aliens, extra life outside of Earth. No,
I'll tell you this.
Come on.
no,
Let's be
demons.
real.
Though.
Let me finish, Pat.
Okay.
It's certain that there's more to this reality than what we experience.
Yeah.
And it's all right there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be 1,000 moons away.
Yep.
Okay. I think that really hard to explain epistemological forms are kind of dreamt up in art.
Yep.
right? I think it's like this same entity, this thing it can be accessed sometimes if you're on the periphery of consciousness, that in some art was considered depicted as like demonic, and now it's Hollywood. It's just depicted as like aliens because we have an understanding of space after we made it to the moon. Versus back then, our understanding was based in religion, right? So I think it's just more of like that. Like, there's not anything that Hollywood pushes.
Yeah.
Isn't real.
So I think it's probably important that we're talking about, because we're talking about different things. I think because he's talking about alien life, and you're talking about the popular conceptualization of aliens.
Yes.
So do I think that there's like other life in the universe? Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable assertion. If you accept the model that the universe is as big as it is, it seems really weird that life would only be concentrated in one random part.
Which brings up the great filter. Where are all the aliens? Where do you think the great filter is? Do you think we've passed it, or?
I think it's like an ant on the side of a highway has no idea that there's an interstate next to him. It's just like that.
I think we've
just perception.
Well, like, I want you to predict where the highway is. Where do you think it would be? Because I have my prediction.
Pineal gland. That's my
I
prediction.
think I have my prediction where I think the great filter is. I think that with our current understanding, we've never gotten an object to move at the speed of light. Okay?
That's a weird one.
Yeah, so I think that's the great filter, is that you can't expand multi-galactal over the span of a species.
Yeah.
While going in that
time
limit.
Perfect
well, maybe in order.
But the weird thing is that Einstein's model of general relativity, allows for wormholes, space to bend, because that's how he thinks gravity works. And if he was, by the grace of God, somehow completely right about how the universe works, or maybe slightly off, but wormholes still exist, then maybe we've already passed the great filter, and maybe we'll be the first galactal civilization to populate the entire universe. Maybe we've already passed it. Maybe we are truly alone in the universe until we die, and then our great grandkids will be populating Saturn. No, not Saturn. Like,
gas.
Yeah.
Floating around in Saturn somewhere.
Happy birthday, idiot.
On the Saturn moon of Titan. So badass.
Yes. Okay, I think what Ted was saying with the ant next to a highway thing is like perhaps actually reaching a sort of life, a way of life that can transcend this like space barrier that keeps the planet so separated, actually just requires the outward appearance of existence to change so much that it isn't recognizable to us. So perhaps there are alien civilizations out there. It's just
like string theory.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with
like
yeah, that's what he was saying with the
like how string theory allows for like 11 dimensions.
I don't know about that.
So like 11 spatial dimensions.
Yeah.
So like we're able to see 3, but there are actually 11.
I'm good with 3. There's definitely currently
4.
more than 3.
I'd like to move 4. Imagine going through time,
I'm good.
Reliving the best moments of your life.
I think in string
I'm
not sure about this, but I think in string theory, the 4th dimension isn't considered to be time. I could be wrong about that.
It's not. I actually read up on this.
Okay,
I think it is considered time, and then the 5th one is considered like.
You know, one time.
I don't even know.
Me and G-Man were so fucking.
Yeah.
And we figured out why it was called Father Time and Mother Nature. It was really crazy. Ben, did you hear that?
Yeah, I know why Mother Nature is Mother Nature, but I don't know why Father Time is.
Why is Mother Nature Mother Nature?
Because nature and chaos are associated with the feminine due to... It's actually not that certain, but probably due to the fact that females are the peoples who create.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So...
I forget why it was Father Time. It made so much sense. I think it had something to do with the fact that the father archetype is sort of the organizer, lays out the day.
So if you think of time, like, so the father archetype also represents the past.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
So that could make sense. Why?
Yeah.
It's related to
Fathers
this.
before us, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's related to the son-father distinction, where the son represents the society, because usually the society is associated with the masculine and the nature is associated with the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that kind of happens in myths a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's almost universal, by the way. Egyptian mythology has a male earth god, but almost every earth is a goddess. Almost always. Every incarnation.
Yeah, it seems to make sense. It's like one provides, and then the other one organizes that. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's chaos and order, right?
Huh.
So, because the distinction...
time brings order to the universe. Without time, the universe would be completely chaotic, right?
Yeah.
Would it?
That's a pretty loose one, and I say it's like loose enough that you could probably say nature brings order to the universe and still have about the same level of certainty, so it's too loose. But what I am going to say is that there's the father-son distinction, where usually the society is associated with the masculine, and the son archetype represents the society at its current state that needs to evolve, whereas the father archetype represents the society as it was. And there's a very simple reason for that. It's because that's how it is in real life. When people have children, they become concerned with the preservation of what they created rather than the creation of new things, as a general rule.
Mm-hmm.
So fathers are almost always concerned with the preservation of their society as they know it. Mm-hmm. So we associate the father archetype with the past society as it was and up till now, and the son archetype with where the society is right now and where it will be heading.
Mm-hmm.
And so then maybe father time makes sense in that time is conceptualized as the gamut of the entire past, of all past things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what's the sun? Like,
The sun is how that evolves. Like how,
like
what?
Future?
Yeah.
Because actually time is a narrative. Like, I mean, not in physics terms. Time is a different thing there, but like, as we experience time, it's more like a narrative. We organize our memories in a way that makes sense in an ordered fashion.
Like
it's a narrative format.
Yeah.
And narrative formats are societal constructs. They're not... So they're masculine in that way, rather than being... So the point is that time is a construct of societies. Like, it's not literally things... there things happen in order in real life, but the way we construct the universe in such a way that there is an ordered series of events that's narrative based, and it's something that's done in society. It's a part of humanity, and society is not a part of nature.
Ben's going wild.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, it's all good to like keep in perspective, but I like thinking more about how those concepts play out in the real world and where you can improve on those concepts. It's always a good background to have. Like it's always good to think about it and
Like super abstract.
Yeah. But
yeah, we're more abstract minded than you generally.
Yeah.
You're pretty like core data minded.
Yeah, I like making things and like showing.
Yeah, you're very articulated.
Yeah, it's good to talk in the abstract a lot.
You want to hear why I think it's important? Me and Ben are a part of the abstract, which would include things like art.
Yeah.
All right. A theory I have about how we understand knowledge and articulation of knowledge. I don't know if I explained this to you. I think I did one time. Is I made the metaphor with Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Where like, okay, the center of a planet is the densest part, and you could correlate that with the most finite data if we're going to use this to understand knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The most articulated thought.
The core.
Yeah, the core. And then as you grow out, it gets more and more loose, and you get to the oceans and whatever else, right? And that's when like slightly less articulated, that's like theories or like metaphysics, right? And then there's a gap, because there seems to be a distinction, like there's a gap between pure logic and then there's a rings around a planet, let's say Saturn, because it has a great example of what rings look like, right? That would be the art world, the most unarticulated, undefined, abstract base of knowledge that humans understand.
Just a pure idea.
And the important thing
Yeah.
is that it's a ring, because
There's a gap between that and pure
yeah,
logic.
that they can't. They don't. It's not just one spectrum. The art world is like, it's like it's a whole.
So here's the thing: you have
Separate
this
thing.
this thing that you're living in, pure finite fact, that is altered over time only by the art that's brought in. Because what is Saturn's rings? It's a meteor field, right?
It's a giant meteor
Eventually,
field.
gravity pulls that in.
Yeah.
And new ones come in.
Or
So
it
it's like
expands.
if you don't have a world, huh?
Or it expands out, depending on how fast the rings go.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
If the planet starts spinning faster, the rings go out.
Yeah, I suppose they would. Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of blows up my theory. But anyways, so the idea is that
Well, it's a metaphor.
new
it's a
ideas come in with time and slowly articulate, right?
Yep.
If your new ideas are really bad, and you can watch in history, like technology we have now was science fiction in the 20s and 30s.
Yep.
Fact.
Yep.
Like that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So it's like if you're not careful about what your art and your metaphysical conversations are right now, it's going to bite you in the ass for your kids really bad. Because like right now, what's music?
Pretty shit.
Pretty shit. And pretty like pill popping, evil, not good.
Pretty
This isn't going to affect us now, but it's going to have potentially
Well, I would argue.
problems in the next generation. And this is proven by the boomer generation when music got quote unquote evil, even though 60s music is my favorite time period of music ever. The millennials sucked ass.
Yeah.
You know, it is like a really weird statement to say that knowledge can be derived from art. Like that's like a really hard statement to justify enough for people, but it's observable. Like the Renaissance happened before the scientific revolution. Like it's the only
it's
thing
pretty
that you can draw
observable.
as having happened right before the scientific revolution.
It's not like
was
a
the
certain
Renaissance,
rule.
which was a big artistic, revolution, right?
It's just a really important factor in a subset of rules that involves knowledge moving. But yeah, I mean, you can follow the traces of art, like you said, with the Renaissance and scientific revolution, or even, again, in America with sci-fi and the tech boom.
Well, the scary thing though is, if you think too much in the abstract, and while it's great to think about it in the abstract some of the time, if you take a look deeper and deeper into like using the Saturn metaphor, let's say, deeper and deeper into the core, if that core becomes more expanded, the entire planet loses stability. So, like if a core of a planet, we'll say like ideas, like the particles of Saturn, let's say those particles get like a bit more separated, and over the course of time they get a good bit separated. The entire planet loses stability.
Like if the core becomes not dense enough?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's important to have people...
Well, it's vastly more important to keep that core stable, right?
I don't know if you can say either is more important than...
Well, no, but
it's all homeostasis.
Well,
okay.
But
it's hugely important to have like let's say a really healthy, like scientific conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's like the most finite fact, and like right now we're not really.
No.
Yeah. Okay. You have to have the framework still has to be able to be able to justify a large portion of the world, and if it stops being able to do that, it's like it becomes useless essentially, right? Like
Well, I know that Nietzsche said that we have art to not die of the truth.
Yeah.
And I kind of extrapolated from that like if no more new ideas come in, that kind of starts the
end
of the core losing its focus.
Yes.
It's like if you have a pond, right? And let's say the pond is in order and wind is new ideas. If you don't have any wind in a pond, it becomes very stagnant. And like it computerizes the word I came up with it. Algae grows way too high and suffocates all the fish, and it dies. So
yeah. Well, there's the point is that knowledge moves like a wave. It comes from the bottom, from the applied observable things. It moves upwards through deduction into concepts, because if it doesn't move into concepts, well, you can't generalize it, so you can't figure out things out very quickly, and you can't teach things very quickly, and if it does, and also you can't Well, I said this earlier. I can't remember what I said. It keeps subjectivity at bay, actually, because any abstract concepts are collective things a lot of people agree upon. So they're less subjective than observable experiences, actually, which is kind of weird, but it's true.
Yeah, it's kind of, that makes sense.
So you have deduction. So you move up. So it's like a wave that that crests upwards through deductive reasoning into abstract concepts, and these abstract concepts, they coalesce and they sit there and they generate new abstract concepts in and of themselves, and then these new concepts they fall back down and they impact the more applied concepts to a heavy degree. So you have people making observances in biology that will affect how we think physics works.
Okay.
I'm gonna just use not art here. I'm just gonna use the way physics works, which actually might impact the way we think the universe works, the metaphysical, and then it goes up, and then we make new metaphysical conclusions, and then that actually comes back down because the metaphysical conclusions can generate in and of themselves a lot more physical understanding of the universe and a lot more understanding of biology, thusly.
So I think what you're saying is during the Industrial Revolution, for example, the most scientifically consider is not the right word, but the general consensus was that the universe was based in combustion because the steam engine had just come out. So you're saying that these things expand outward and interact with each other in that manner, or now it's very often considered that the universe is explained as a computer simulation because we just had that technological boom. Is that what you're saying?
That's not exactly what I'm saying.
No.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong. It really, it's close to what I'm saying in a way because you have to think about it to see why it's close.
He's talking about the process that actually goes about happening.
Yeah. So I guess you could see how it's related because say maybe we might actually being able to think of the universe as a computer civilization simulation, which is something we get from knowing how computers work in the real world, might yield new ways. For instance, being able to think about how files, knowing how files work, for me, has led me to interesting generalizations about how ideas move, right? Yeah. So you can, it moves
I get it.
So in that way it does move from, yep.
Well, these ideas can be applied across industries too. That's
and then when you have the abstract principles, they apply to a lot of things. So
exactly. I'm sure the way that let's say we'll just use the file drop as an example, right? Or actually we'll use a better example. I think that the way our brain stores information, it stores it in two separate ways. I think that actually this is true.
Yeah.
It stores it in two separate ways through two separate glands in our brain. There's two separate areas of our brain.
Okay.
It stores it in short-term memory, like RAM in a computer, and it stores it in long-term memory, in a solid-state drive in a computer.
Which is psychologically called encoding.
But why did they design it like that? Why did they design computers with RAM and with solid-state drives? Well, because it made sense intuitively.
Yeah.
You need a space to store short-term information, and you need a space to store long-term information. I even think there's a third, which is inherited information that gets passed on through thousands of years that they didn't even implement in computers. And that could be a technological breakthrough.
Yeah, that's the collective unconscious.
That's a good point.
Jung would call that the collective unconscious.
That's even what cloud and AI are being built on.
I don't like that. That's scary to me.
Why?
I don't like cloud and AI because I think they not AI so much, but when we talk about the cloud, my issue with the cloud is it removes it takes away possession. You know what I mean? Like, if I have my things on a cloud, then I can't have my things physically. I can't own my things. They're like, it can be said that it's owed to me, but actually those can change really quickly. Those agreements.
Yeah, it's basically it's like debt. Like it's like leasing ideas.
Yeah. It's like,
right?
well, it's like I don't, even if I nominally own this, I don't really own this if it's on the cloud. And that's actually true because those agreements, they can actually change really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can get subpoenaed. Anything on the cloud can be seized.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they can be looked
that's
through.
That's not cool.
Well,
I think
basically the way I like to think about it is the cloud is similar to like what evolution is. It's like a modern form of almost computer evolution, in a way, because there isn't really an interface to sort through all the bullshit yet. So like in theory, what the AI would be built on is like a big centralized database of all the information in human history, and what is that? It's the cloud. And that's what it's going to train on, and that's how you would develop like a perfect artificial intelligence, which is why those two are linked in essence. It doesn't really have like very many actual like real concepts yet, but in the short-term future it will, because these big cloud producers, Microsoft and Google, they're the biggest AI players too. You don't see Facebook developing a cool new AI. They're focused on the metaverse. You don't see Netflix developing their cool AI. They're kind of a stagnant company at this point. But the biggest cloud players are inevitably linked to AI, and the biggest like social media players are inevitably linked to the metaverse. It's basically front end and back end. You don't use artificial intelligence, but you would use the metaverse. It's a way to bring that concept of evolution down into like the future technologies, I guess. And it's good that you're able to point that out, because it shows at least some resemblance between what we've gone through before into this new technology.
Yeah.
Which is something that like we didn't really have in the Industrial Revolution, right? There was nothing that happened in human history before that would even suggest the fact that 90% of our population would be living in cities, that like more than or less than half of our economy would not be dependent on agriculture. There's nothing in history that would even come close to suggesting that pre-1920. And it's cool to see that it's integrating like our past into these new technologies.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Deeply theoretical.
Yeah.
Just like you like it.
What are you thinking, Ben? Anything or no?
No, I don't really have anything for that.
Alright. We got an hour. We got an hour recorded.
Right, like in this recording?
6 o'clock now.
Yeah, we got, we had like another 54 minutes recorded on the other one too.
Really?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're set. Dude, do you want to edit any of these?
Fuck. I'm
You
learning. I should.
Yeah.
I might. I'm learning DeFi right now, dude. Like, getting all these concepts into reality is actually really tough, because I don't come from like a CS background. I don't know how to code. So like, learning how to design, learning how to take these concepts and like keep all of these previous concepts in mind, it gets increasingly more difficult as you start dealing with more breakthrough technologies. You can see the mistakes that Facebook made in this, where like they didn't even come close to introducing any form of like non-censorship bias or any form of like governance on how Facebook should be ran. There's no like help box to let them know how you think they should be running their company. There's no voting. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And that's a huge development oversight on Facebook's end.
Yeah.
That should be massively integrated into Web 2, and it's not anywhere.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't want that, would they?
Yeah, they would. It makes their product better.
No.
Very conflicting worldviews here. One,
Yeah.
essentially, in the current society with the capitalism and the
wanna be voted
empiricism.
on.
And the other one here
know what
is
I mean?
borderline conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Not really. He
Borderline.
doesn't. It's not. He doesn't want to be
Borderline.
voted on. Of course.
Well,
he
yeah,
doesn't.
no, that's.
I would want to be voted on if I was leading $1 billion company.
I wouldn't.
No, you
I
wouldn't.
mean, I
History
would,
says you
but like,
would.
okay, no, I don't. I wouldn't expect Mark Zuckerberg to want to be voted on. No.
It's
But
like the first.
it's not that
the
he would
first
be
kings
voted
of the
on;
world,
it's that
man.
his product would be voted on.
Yeah.
How would
the
he make
first
his
kings
product
of the
better?
world were never voted on. You know what I mean?
I know.
It's like the beginning stages.
Yeah. Well. Someone was gonna say.
Yeah. One of the only rules that we came to the conclusion about today was that if governments or a government-like entity gets temporary doesn't exist. They latch on to power. I just can't imagine Zuckerberg would want to be voted on. So of course he's gonna be against it. If you know what I mean.
Well, I disagree when it comes to purely the concept of not him being voted out of his board of directors, but him improving the site Facebook.com or him improving Instagram or him improving Oculus. Yeah, he would definitely want to make his product better for everybody. So any criticism that he can hear, he would like to hear it, especially if it's on something as broad ranged as
that assumes that
he wants to make his product better.
Yeah, and that leaders of the world want to actually get voted on to run the country as best possible for the citizens, which historically they don't.
Yeah, but we live in the U.S. It's a completely different societal framework that's ever existed before.
Does that? No, it's
4 generations of
historically.
Zuckerbergs that probably lived in America. You can't tell me that his entire societal framework isn't centered around democracy.
Definitely is not.
I don't know. It's that subconscious, not mind washing, but framing.
You could probably stand and look at them like real people that probably did grow up in America and might expect things. No, I don't expect them to necessarily be democratic.
Yeah, they won't be democratic. They don't
because
want to be
people-
democratic.
Actually, I
History
think it's
proves that
important.
leaders power.
As a whole, it's actually kind of unavoidable that a sect of your population will want to be tyrannical regardless of how democratic the society is. Some portion of the population will desire to be a tyrant. That's just kind of how people
and it's
are.
It's not that's unlikely. Tyrant is the rule.
Yes, well, I mean, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's the rule. And
It's the
Zuckerberg's
rule.
a creep. So...
Well, he's a weirdo.
He's a complete creep psycho that was on Epstein's plane.
What?
He was on Epstein's plane.
The fuck he was? He was 19 when Epstein got arrested.
What? Yeah, he was on Epstein's plane. So was Clinton. So was
I don't think Mark Zuckerberg was ever on Epstein's plane. Epstein was arrested for a really long time. He killed himself in 2019, but he was in jail for a while before that. He did, his plane was probably, I don't know exactly when his plane was seized, but 19-year-old startup founder Harvard kid Mark Zuckerberg probably ain't flying on it. You know what I mean?
Alright, whatever. I might have been thinking of maybe it was Bezos.
Maybe it was
Bill Gates was on it.
Yeah, okay. It's they're buddy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe I become the world's richest man and show you that a human can, in fact. Maybe I'm a cyborg. You never know. Maybe I'm a cyborg.
I'm
too.
pretty sure you're not.
This is driving me nuts. I was gonna say something and it keeps slipping my mind.
It's alright.
I don't know. It's just tyrants are too prevalent to put trust in that.
Well,
It seems like a good idea.
yeah, it's just a UI choice. I know if I was ever building an app, I would have a section where people could vote on different things that they want to implement. That's what early stage startups do.
Psychology would suggest differently.
Well, modern startups are taught to grow is basically you build this thing, right? You see if people want to use it. So you get 100 to 200 people to use it initially. It's called a beta. And then if the beta goes well, you build a full-fledged product and you launch it. And instead of like what you might think you would want to do, which is grow instantly, what modern startups are doing is they're only marketing to get 1 to 200 active users on their site who stick around, use it on a daily or weekly basis. And then what they do is after 2 or 3 months of these 100 to 200 people using it, they reach out to every single one of them. Hey, why do you use our product? What features would you like to add? What features do you never use? What features do you always use? And why do you use them? And then you build an app based on not what you think is most valuable to the marketplace, but what this initial test group of people thinks is popular to the marketplace, or what they want. So I think it's just a huge oversight that Facebook didn't implement that policy more elegantly into their
but it's not
idea.
an oversight. Like, you don't think he thought of that? It's like he doesn't want that. It's like,
why would he not want to improve his product?
Because it's like, I'll tell you.
Right, because you're doing that thing again where you're like, whatever.
No, it's because
You're
in history, stop. In history, people in control, like tyranny over free market. It's like,
yeah, but this isn't controlling a government. This is controlling your own site. Nobody's questioning your authority to control the site. They're questioning whether or not the site is useful in the first place.
I don't know, whatever.
It's like voting on a policy in a government, not like questioning the rule of a dictator. It's similar to like making Julius Caesar write every single bill that passed in the Roman Senate.
That was the Venetian way of government.
Yeah, probably wasn't the greatest. Didn't quite stand the test of time.
No, Doge lost power really quickly, and then it was just a republic after that.
Yeah.
Which is actually, like, this, it is true, though, in real life, it's actually really hard to make a system in which people vote on stuff, but you're still the sole unquestioned leader. That doesn't usually last very long.
No.
But that's on the time frame of, like, centuries, not really relevant to Mark Zuckerberg.
Because he's, like, 35. Like, leaders do go down within 20 years, but, like,
Yeah.
when you start something versus when you end or when you get overthrown, it's not usually within a 20-year period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you get killed. Like
Yeah, that
Hitler
wouldn't be
did.
relevant to Mark Zuckerberg. I don't expect that Mark Zuckerberg would have specifically made the decision not to allow voting because he thought he would get ousted eventually.
It just seems like a bit of an oversight.
I think
I
he
just
might
don't
have-
think he didn't see that. I think he's smart enough to have thought of that for sure. I just think he chose not to do it. Like, there's no way.
It's not like Zuckerberg's this perfect human being.
I think
You thought of it,
No,
man.
I think actually probably what you have with Zuckerberg is like the reason he's not voting is because he doesn't really is because a lot of these companies they care about their own marketability more than they care about user enjoyment. So if users don't have to actually enjoy the site so long as they keep using the site.
That's an interesting point. That is really key.
So like the users might suggest things that increase their enjoyment, and the users might suggest they should have free speech.
Yeah.
But that's not actually very helpful for Mark Zuckerberg. It's a lot more
That's
helpful
what
for
I'm
Mark Zuckerberg. It's a lot more helpful for
be a
Facebook
communist.
as a platform to be communist and not have free speech or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is, and communist
Tyranny is more prevalent in history
but,
than freedom.
But tyrannical governments usually get overthrown.
No, they don't. Look at history. That's why I keep saying history.
Mao
There's
Zedong.
200 years of freedom, and the rest is tyranny.
Mao Zedong got overthrown.
Absolute
Or no, he
total-
died, actually.
Absolute totalitarian. Yeah, that was a bad example.
Yeah.
Absolute totalitarian governments do usually get overthrown, but tyrannical governments are more common
It's not
in
even
history.
close. All of history, 400 years. 200 Rome, 200 America. The rest is tyranny.
It's not all tyranny, but and
Basically.
actually that's a false dichotomy altogether.
Why?
Well, why should it be a false dichotomy? Why should a government that's like has aristocrat, like say medieval England that was like kind of feudal and aristocratic, but had a pretty large degree of rights and change. Why should that be lumped in with the same thing as, like, say, Qin Dynasty China, which was an absolute totalitarian state with
Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's essentially binary good and evil.
Yeah. Right? Why should you make the false dichotomy?
But it's on a spectrum.
It is on a spectrum, exactly.
Well, okay, but like...
Because, like, and the Venetian Republic was not as good as the American Republic, but it was a lot better than the feudal states that were
what
around
matters
it.
is, like, just good or not good at the end of the day, right?
No.
Why not?
That's how ideologues think.
I don't know. It still seems easier for Zuckerberg to play as a communist type than to
Yeah, it's
have
way
all-
easier.
Yeah, it's way easier for Zuckerberg to...
But it's not nearly as long lasting.
Yeah, one would hope. One would hope.
I would hope.
No, it seems like democracies fall really fast in history.
They didn't have tech. They also didn't have as many resources as we have now.
See, democracies win out long term. That's true, but it's like...
Well, I guess I'm kind of equating capitalistic versus communistic economic roles for, like, democracy and tyranny,
And
which
the
isn't
two
necessarily
go...
the case.
They're not necessarily the same thing. They do correlate. Like,
Yeah, but they're not. Causality isn't.
Yeah.
Correlation.
Correlation's
isn't
not.
causality.
Yeah.
I guess.
All right.
But if I'm ever gonna build a protocol, I'm definitely. Gonna
It just
implement
seems to
that
me
shit.
like whenever people get power, they take it and they don't go, oh, the votes will help me make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So...
And on an individual human level, sure. But
And the
when
history of the world.
when the entire goal is to compete in a capitalistic market, you'd think at least that.
Yeah, if the
That would
goal's
matter.
that,
Well,
that's not the goal.
yeah. It's a goal for me.
It's goal for you, it's goal for those guys. Not the goal for the Zuckerberg and the people that run it all right.
Now you're making that thing again where you're not treating them as people who have normal human motivations. Like, and power is a normal human motivation, mind you. So is greed. But, like, a lot of times you make the jump where you stop treating them as people that act with normal motivations and start treating them as people that act irrationally unless you consider them to be absolutely evil and unhuman.
First of all, that's possible. Second of all, no, it's just they're motivated by power and controlling this new space as long as they can.
Yeah.
Pretty simple human motive, I feel. Right?
Yeah, I buy that, but there are, for them to control that, they actually do need to act in the market. So they have to be motivated to act in the market.
Yeah, the reason people used Facebook was to connect with their loved ones. Like, you'd want to do that as effectively as possible if you want to survive in the marketplace. Which is why Facebook died in the end, because it didn't capture
to just knock down buildings than it is to build the tallest one. Okay, it's easier for them to just maintain being the only guy that can do that than, like...
Well, knocking down the buildings would actually help them create the bigger ones because they would use the materials. And I'll bring that into a real example. Facebook buys a lot of companies. Facebook buys a lot of startups for a lot of money. They pay a lot of money for startups
all that
helping.
money's unfair because they have ships and stuff that allow them to evade taxes. So what's happening is startup companies can either try and build their own company at high tax rates, or they can get an immediate payout that, like, sort of, like, subverts it into, like, a no tax.
Startups are actually very beneficial in terms of taxes. They lose a lot of money all the time, every year. Amazon didn't start paying taxes until 2018 because they lost so much money.
That's right, I forgot about that. But Amazon didn't keep losing money; they kept recirculating money.
Yeah, different.
That was a real...
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
but my point is,
like
like,
on
okay.
paper, in
Yeah.
taxes.
Yeah.
In
It's
taxes
like
they did.
easier for a business to get bought out than it is to try and start fresh.
That is true.
If
Yeah. Well, that's always true, though.
Yeah.
But
well, no. Also, especially when this is happening, when the big businesses have like ships. What's the word I'm looking?
yeah, there's a lot of...
Resources to evade taxes at a higher rate than the small guy can, because then you're like paying into this less taxed thing, which is someone else's money.
It's an inestimable problem in the modern capitalist system that the way it's structured allows for
Monopolies to exist
because
based on the user's control.
it gives really drastic advantage to larger companies.
Because they just have resources that allow them to launder and...
Yeah.
Well, which is why the federal government kind of failed in a very massive way by not regulating these companies effectively.
Yeah.
That's like how are you going to regulate Facebook's like UI? You don't really.
Yeah,
but you regulate their ability to buy Instagram and to buy Oculus and
I think the reason that this is tough is because we don't really know how to treat the internet in a way that makes sense in our existing framework. So it's hard to figure out what applies when.
Total users is a very good metric.
Well, it's a good metric, but it's not a great metric because it's subjective and it's actually biased towards, the users. And the users aren't necessarily representative of the whole population.
But they are the whole population.
So, if you take Twitter,
yeah,
the population on Twitter, maybe they would say they're pro-free speech, but the population on Twitter is pretty overwhelmingly not pro-free speech.
Yes.
So maybe that's not the best metric to decide what to do with Twitter.
I don't know if that's true. It's possible.
From a legislative standpoint, the company Twitter shouldn't be allowed to buy a new startup in the social media space.
Yeah, but it's possible.
But here's the thing: that you said social media space.
Yes.
There's a construct of how to treat social media.
Well,
you're comparing it to a space, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a given. What do you compare social media to? If you compare it to a space, then it actually makes sense to treat the people inside that space as having.
No, it's like a town square. It's like the
but that's an assumption though. It's a presupposition to say that social media is a space. And if social media is a space, then social media then social media incorporates the public right to free speech and a bunch of other rights, and the people that govern that space now act in a way like governments, so they have to be restrained. But you could treat it like a space, or you could treat it like data, like paper. That's a different thing. Or you could treat it just as records in a company's ledger, which is how they were by default treated, because who would predict that it would end up the way it is today?
Which is but it did.
Well, it's a public forum. It legally has to be a public forum, or else they're a publisher of a Twitter would have. If it's not legally a public forum, they would be publishing everything anyone tweets.
Yes, and that's bad.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is them banning people without
Any
reasonable legislation behind it makes them a publisher, in which case everything they're doing would be illegal. So I mean, it's pretty illegal what they're doing.
Well, I think this is the thing of it is just how to conceptualize computers. The best ways to conceptualize computers that their invention is a new method of storing data. How does that translate into?
I would argue it's just an extension of the person themselves.
Some people would argue that, and some people would argue that they're not that, and some people would say they're spaces, but they're not the people, and some people would say that maybe they're spaces for the storage of data.
Well, why is it? Well, they're all of those things, but I would argue from a social media perspective, which is by and large what the big players are and who you're regulating in this hypothetical scenario of regulating Twitter.
Yeah.
You'd have to treat the computers in this case as an extension of the people using them, because that's what Twitter is built for.
Okay, the users,
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's...
In which case, you would need to regulate Twitter's ability to gain more real estate in terms of the total news supply that they occupy. Would you like if the New York Times or CNN or Fox News or any giant Warner Brothers Disney was the only place that you could get your news?
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah.
But that's what's happening. Facebook owns Instagram.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Those are two giant players who control it's 5 billion active monthly users on all of their platforms.
Yeah.
That's 65% of the population on Earth right now is using Facebook
unlegislated.
It's one, unconstitutional from a monopoly perspective, because by definition that is a monopoly.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's really, really fucked up from a
Ethical.
what a government should be doing,
Yeah,
because in essence the world's governments should be regulating Facebook because it's an American company, but because it's an American company, America is the only one allowed to do so unless they just completely ban Facebook. But since Facebook is based in America and it has this widespread reach, America is the only one allowed to regulate it, and they've done a terrible job of regulating it
Yeah.
by and large.
Mm-hmm.
And Twitter is the same thing.
Yeah, it's... I just... You said Twitter, like, the people on there say they might be for free speech, but they seem otherwise.
They know they're other. Yeah, it's definitely otherwise.
I don't know. I'm not certain, because if they were not free speech majority, like, it might be really close. They wouldn't have to censor voices online, which they do. Like, they artificially already do that.
No, but he's arguing that Twitter is not a place for free speech, meaning they should and can and do censor people.
If you take it if you say that the opinion of the user base determines what their rights are or whatever, that was actually used as an explanation of why that's maybe not a good idea, because free speech should be inalienable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, I guess.
And these centralized companies are regulating free speech, which is a violation of the First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
If you conceptualize it as a public space, which
good.
is not necessarily the default conceptualization. See, that this is the trick of it, is like I
But
say,
it
is
should be.
how do you conceptualize the internet in such a way that it encapsulates how the internet acts and how
But the internet,
we feel the internet
is
ought
too,
to act.
Well, the internet is too broad of a definition. Let's take a look at it from an individual company perspective and from a space perspective.
Yeah, when the printing press came out, everyone has a right to it.
Yes.
Which not everyone has a right to Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
so
It's not fair.
let's purely focus for a second on.
It's like
We'll
some
say-
commodities have to be rights.
Yeah, we'll say Twitter,
They
right?
become mechanics.
We'll say Twitter is, the computers on Twitter are an extension of the humans. Social media is a space. How would you go about regulating that? Would you allow free speech on there and potentially spread hate speech?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
Yeah, because it's a space. It
But-
gets actually easy
yes.
then.
Yeah, super easy. Really, really straightforward and broad scoping, legislative ability, and the government has done a terrible job of realizing that, because it's fairly straightforward.
To be fair, the government is like acting very senile.
Yeah, the average age of the Senate is like 70.
In its capabilities to handle the internet as it's evolved.
Yeah, and that's a topic that's really bad, because in my opinion, what the Senate should be is a demographic match of the highest income earners, the people who provide the most value to society, not the retirees, in essence. That in terms of age demographic, I would argue that
That's
the people who have the most say in our economy are the people who produce the most for it.
Yeah.
And broad ranging, that's people aging from 30 to 55 are the highest income earners, at least in America and at least in our capitalistic society. So I think our Senate and our politicians should represent that, but they don't. I don't know how you regulate that. I don't know how you make that to where it should be, but that would allow for not only politicians to make a lot more sensible decisions objectively, because they have more brain power, obviously, because Parkinson's isn't as big of a runaway issue in 30 to 55-year-old people as it is in 70 to 90-year-old people.
Yeah.
Enough with
I
this.
mean, there's no term limit in the Senate for some.
No.
Yeah, that's just
Ridiculous.
That's an obvious
Really
one.
tough.
That's an easy one. Just like,
Come on.
what the hell were you thinking with that one?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, and also,
8-year term.
media-
It was modeled off of the Roman Republic, which didn't have term limits. for
another huge
senators.
problem is the fact that media is such a powerful thing
That works so
that
well.
we
Well,
forget.
it's more powerful now than ever.
Yeah, I know, and it emphasizes president so much you forget that everything else exists,
Yeah.
and then it's like just a subversion. Look over here, and that allows for these things
when
to
the
fall
Senate and the
apart.
House actually have more power than the president, objectively.
Yeah, I know. But nobody votes on them or pays any attention to
No,
them.
I couldn't name you a senator. Well, AOC. I could
Yeah.
name you 2 senators right now. Pelosi. I couldn't
Yeah,
name you 3
well,
they're
this
senators.
is-
both literally retarded.
Yeah.
They don't represent anybody.
Gonna be
AOC's
analyzed.
hot though. You can't even lie. AOC's
Dude.
a dime.
No, she's not. She's like,
What?
if she maybe
What?
didn't act like a lesbian robot.
No,
No,
but
she
like
looks-
objectively as a human, as a female, she's a
I
dime.
don't know. She's got freaking lizard eyes, man.
I
Yeah,
don't
but she's
remember what
hot.
she looks
I
like.
trust her.
She's pretty sexy.
Okay.
Okay. Cut.
Yeah. AOC.
Just add Nancy Pelosi.
Dude,
Just add Nancy Pelosi with this video.
Nancy Pelosi is the hottest.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, she's ugly, obviously.
Yeah.
They're not even human. They're like demons, dude. Nobody even voted for them. Nobody even voted for Biden. Why are we paying attention?
My mom voted for Biden. No, I'm joking.
Okay.
Well, she did.
Does anyone think that Biden was elected fairly? Literally nobody, because theoretically he beat Obama.
I don't think he had an extremely unfair election. I think it was just as corrupt as every other election in the past 20
What?
years.
It was the only election that was run during COVID times.
Yeah.
That makes it more corrupt. Because the
Not-
world was shut down when he got elected.
Well,
I mean, seriously, dude. He would have destroyed Obama and Reagan by the numbers. That's not.
that's the growth
Believable.
in human population.
No, that doesn't
Reagan.
model it right, especially for Obama. It's too close. But
Yeah, Obama's too close.
The fact you'd have to assume for that to be sensible is that is that
never
mail-in
mind. That's
voting
wrong.
is
Yeah.
that mail-in voting would have to make up for that.
And also, obviously, our political climates have gotten a lot more divisive.
That's
leading
also
more
a
people to
factor.
vote.
But you'd have to assume that mail-in voting was a huge factor for that to make sense. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying
For what
that
to make sense?
for the drastic voter turnout increase to make sense.
Well, I'd just argue it's political climate. Everybody was
yeah.
super pissed off about.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everybody.
don't
The
know, I
mass
think
Dude, he's
Everybody.
literally
The mass-
senile, bro. What are you
well,
talking about?
the mass media was really pissed off about Trump for his
That's
entire
great.
presidency.
Dude.
Riled up a lot of voters, and they literally elected.
Dude, literally look at a Trump rally and then look at a Biden rally. It's not even close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really supportive Trump voters, but when people vote for Biden, they're not
Yeah.
necessarily voting for
That's
Biden.
actually a
They're
point.
voting against Trump.
That's actually a fair
Yeah, I
point because
know.
Trump was much more of a demagogue, whereas Biden's actually like the anti-demagogue because because his basic philosophy was he didn't have a philosophy. So he didn't really gain a lot of very adamant supporters. It was
No.
just people who didn't like Trump. They didn't care about Biden. They didn't go to the Biden
it's similar than in
rallies.
2016. Like most Trump voters, at least broad-ranging, like middle-aged moms, weren't voting for Trump. They were voting against Hillary because she's a crazy psycho bitch.
I don't think that's
and
true, man.
With
Yeah,
Biden,
That's why
Hillary's a
people
crazy
voted.
psycho bitch.
and
Oh, I
specifically
definitely
with
think that.
Yeah.
No, I
Biden-
think people were voting for Hillary just to not vote for Trump. I think people actually
Well, there's a case for that.
definitely like
And-
Trump. He was huge.
but,
He's the
yeah.
biggest political movement.
Well,
in
yeah, he's a
long
big
time.
political movement, but
Biden
the point
isn't.
is that Biden was never a movement. If anything, all he is he's basically a reassertion of like the status quo of politics from the 2000s.
Yeah.
From the 2000s.
He's just a statue. He's just a guy
That
who doesn't really
represents
have any-
those things. So no one cares about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like people aren't super hyped when Joe Biden's president, but like if AOC were to run or if Michelle Obama were to run, they would have massive numbers of like big,
Dude, it's like the
big
first
supporters.
mail-in COVID lockdown election of all time. A senile, unpopular weirdo was elected.
I wouldn't say unpopular.
Super. What are you talking about?
I mean, now he's
Not being
unpopular.
popular is very different than being unpopular.
Yeah.
That's actually, but I'm just trying to make this point because it's like
It's huge.
you
There's
gotta
like
really
videos of them
you gotta
unloading
really consider
ballots
like you gotta
2 in the morning. And Wisconsin changed at 2 in the morning. To all of a sudden Biden wins.
I'm just saying if you're gonna say the common worldview is wrong and your very different worldview is right,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to imagine the common worldview in its most articulate and like you've got to argue for the common worldview.
Okay, I see what you mean. It just seems super obvious. Like,
There's more. There's slightly more potential for fraud.
hugely more potential for fraud. I mean,
You still have to put down a social
There's a
security
pretty
number.
So what?
yeah.
You ever,
Never
dude?
mind.
Just yeah.
Never mind.
If I'm your
Dumb
employer,
point.
I know your whole social security number, dude. That's how that works.
Yeah, dumb.
We just all lie to ourselves
look,
and say that's
okay,
protected.
look.
You can buy.
You
Did you
can
know
mail
you
it-
can buy social security numbers
I
out of
am
the
not.
dark market
I,
or the black
I'm
web,
gonna
really?
go buy my social security number tomorrow just for the hell of it.
You can pay in Bitcoin and then get screwed like Ross Ulbricht. Don't do that. That's how he got in jail.
Yeah.
He ran the Silk Road. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like a big.
It's
big,
definitely certain that our whatever is our like political, like our presidents and Senate, right? What would we call that collectively?
our government.
Sure. Duh. I'm getting tired, bro.
Yeah.
Federal
government.
Our
Well, state government to
federal
an extent,
political
too.
collective.
Voidum.
There we go.
Our national federal political collective.
Yes.
Voidum, Ted. Don't you know the word voidum?
Either way, it's definitely clear that that doesn't represent the average American person in any sense.
No.
Which is, like, what the
wait,
hell are we paying
state.
taxes for? Huh?
State.
Yeah.
State. Yeah, our state.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, you would have to impose a very, very widespread, not political uprising, but like government reform.
Yeah, I know.
But the entire point of the United States was to make that so that was literally unachievable over the course of one's lifetime. That was like the entire point of the United States, is so that all these checks and balances exist so that things can't really be changed all that quickly. That was the entire point of
I don't think
developing
that's the
Yeah,
point. I
no.
think that's more of like a side effect.
Well, that it was the outlook when
No,
they
I mean,
were
we were
deciding
built
how
on
to
Locke's
build the
idea of
framework
the
United
social
States.
construct.
Contract.
Like, revolt was, like, necessary to the Constitution's.
Yeah, well, you'd think of it. Yeah, I mean, it was okay. Yeah, there's a decent argument that the Constitution was built with Locke's right to revolt, which is what you're referring to,
Yeah.
in mind.
Like, that
Like the states can secede and stuff like that.
Yeah, that worked out well.
It didn't work out. Well, I mean, dude,
At all.
I mean,
think
not
about
that
this.
I'm not a huge supporter
From-
of the Confederacy, because, like, let's be honest,
No,
they
I know, but
revolted
from-
for slaves,
think
right?
about it-
That's what they were doing.
Yes.
Think about it from their lens, though, dude. From their lens, it's crazy. Like, from their lens, Lincoln was, like, a tyrannical president who
Yes.
went to war against their culture.
Of
Yep.
course, that was always kind of like a thing, because they know deep down they revolted just to keep slaves. There's no ethical justification for
Well,
I
that
that.
think
was the
probably
whole
the
point of
people
Civil
didn't.
War,
I-
is so that the
I
South
think-
economy wouldn't be destroyed
Yeah.
by having
Yeah.
these
I
black
think
people
probably
get
the
paid.
people, Ben. I think probably the people didn't. I think, like, the South was essentially like a legalese through slavery to continue
Oligarchy.
in feudalism
Yeah.
from Europe.
Yeah.
So I think the people probably didn't really revolt against for slavery, but they were
Maybe,
just
yeah.
part of like a
Okay.
collective.
Yeah, that's true. I think the majority of like, because that's true. That's
They
a
were
weird
just, like,
thing
part
about
of
the
this
South.
collective
always-
created by
It was
like
a huge majority of economic impact that
Yeah.
was in support
really weird.
of
Well,
the
that's true. The
Confederacy.
little people still would have gotten impacted a lot by
Yes.
the removal of slavery if they didn't own slaves.
All right, can I just change the topic totally?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
this is getting lame. It's pretty cool. You're a lot smarter than the guy, Tom.
I appreciate that.
We're gonna have to cut that one bit. Ben,
Don't pause the recording.
137. Okay. Remember that, because I think this is like maybe we should upload a full audio one time. Or
I'm
not.
down.
Yeah, but we have to cut that one bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the part where I like. No, you can
You'll have
keep,
to do some
you can
minor
keep the,
editing.
yeah,
I
you can,
definitely spaced out at one point.
it's alright.
I don't
Do
remember.
some minor editing still.
Hey, it's all good if you leave the part that AOC is hot.
No. Cut that.
Did you look her up?
What?
AOC? Did you look
AOC?
Up? Yeah, AOC.
Oh no, I didn't know.
Don't
You should
look her up.
Look her up. She's hot. She's hot.
All right, so
You know you want to. Come on.
you guys ready for some really unarticulated weirdo ideas?
Yes.
No.
But I'm not willing to talk about them.
It's
until
6:40 and I'm hungry. I just want to eat.
Until Ben looks up AOC. You got to. She's okay. if there's a single politician that I want you to look up purely for the fact that they look physically awesome, it's ASD.
It's Donald Trump. No.
The perfect human specimen.
That's actually weird though. He does have like a sort of cult-like following,
Yeah.
like internal
No,
following.
it's like it's
yeah,
actually
he
like
does.
really
He
bad.
kind of Trump. It's not.
It's
horrible. He
really
does kind of
weird
have
that the
fanaticals.
Christians like are like
Fanatical's literally the word. Yeah.
yeah, they think he's like a savior.
And
He's not a very religious person.
No, he's not.
No, he made a lot of people bankrupt.
All
It's
right,
bad.
here's my thing.
Okay.
Okay, what in art, Ben, I think you'll know the answer, represents knowledge? Like the way knowledge moves. I did it.
What in
Brushstrokes.
Huh?
Brushstrokes.
No, what?
The way they look in paintings.
Okay, that's interesting, but no.
Oh, are you just gonna say fractals?
No. Yes, no. It's
Fractals.
snakes.
The fuck?
Yeah. Going back to, the snake gave Adam the apple, the fruit of knowledge, and Egypt. Snakes seem to represent knowledge.
Hermes is a staff of
Yeah,
you know what
Hermes
I'm talking about.
staff. It's literally on the Who's.
Well, yeah, because it's a
Logo.
symbol of
Logo,
medicine.
yeah.
Hermes was the god of medicine.
Okay, but okay, what is that? What does a snake do? Especially when you have a staff. Let's say this staff represents like happy medium homeostasis type of deal, and it's symmetrical. The snake slithers in a symmetrical pattern, so it's like
Okay.
so like. Let's say left and right is good and evil, right? Integration of good and evil. You move into good or evil or order and chaos, and it symmetrically happens in this pattern that creates growth upwards.
Well, I
Homeostasis.
just thought about something that connects with that.
Another
you say that-
representation is like a Newton's cradle. Like you have, what's that called? Shoot, what's that called?
The one with the Newton's cradle slithering.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
gravity causes it to move back and
You're gonna have to
forth
show these pictures
from
too.
two types of extremes, and then it goes into those, and then is reborn in the center.
Yeah,
It's
even
like-
if you do like a very light edit, you're
Yeah.
also gonna have to include a picture of Hermes' staff because not everyone's gonna get the reference.
Yeah, for sure.
And that marble you're talking about.
What do you want to say?
So, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, using like a snake, like a way a snake moves as an analogy for like how knowledge and how like humans progress.
Yeah.
So, if you think about it, to bring it back to politics, but if you think about like a way a snake moves as the way our political climate goes,
Yep.
too far right,
Too far
up,
left, yep.
to too far left, down. It's super interesting to think, but there's a certain amount of that that's necessary for movement, for peak movement, right? You need a way to move, but when a snake goes too far in
Yep.
one direction,
No, Gaetano said that. When I
Yeah.
told this to Gaetano, he goes, if you have a 10-foot rope and you're trying to slither around an 8-foot fat pole, you're going to get 2 feet up.
yeah,
So there has to be like a healthy,
healthy wiggle room,
yeah.
but you need to stop it from wiggling too much because it will do that automatically.
Yeah, because you'll get,
Yeah.
and you're screwed.
So it's pretty dangerous when political climates escalate.
Too high.
Because while you may get more corruption when nobody really cares about politics because nobody's really looking at it, you would rather have more corruption, meaning less objective speed moving,
Yeah.
than ridiculously long-reaching movements of like this snake analogy, I guess.
Yeah, so there's like some sort of homeostasis.
Yeah, right? 'Cause
Can we define that, or we don't know how to yet?
well, you need a certain. We'll just say like you need a certain amount of movement, in like the way that knowledge moves and the
Yeah.
way the world is understood. But it's got to be
Okay.
bound.
So it seems to be like
Because
it's
it's
like
often hard
order,
to derive
good
like
and evil,
it's
and that's why it's symmetric.
Yeah.
it's often hard to
Integration.
derive what is true. So deriving what is true often takes splits from the objective to the subjective, where we make assumptions and we make differing assumptions, and we have to work with those assumptions and keep separate until you can sort of come out the other end as a whole.
Yeah.
So that's like that's a very important part of knowledge moving, is this movement between objective and subjective.
All right, I got a good prompt
Yeah.
in the next section of this video.
What?
Should all drugs...
We're not talking about this one.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Wait, you said all drugs should be legal?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got a lot of interesting stuff in
So
this.
do I.
Like, I did a thing with this in ethics where I established there's, like, different... Like, there's, like, different reasons why drugs should not be legal. And, like, they have different merits.
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing is if you centralize it, like, if you make them illegal, then the mafia has central control, or the cartel.
Supply always meets demand.
Yeah, I said
Always.
even in the
Always.
illegal ones, people outside of municipalities should have rights to it,
then
and
again-
people in municipalities should be able to, like, municipalities should be able to establish themselves that allow for illegal drugs.
But then again, the demand for drugs would grow if you were to legalize them, because supply would always meet demand, and no matter what kind of regulation you put in,
It hurts demand.
Yeah, in like a hood Chicago neighborhood that's hooked on heroin, there's gonna be a heroin shop on every street block, and they're gonna all succeed and all make lots of money.
Yeah,
But that'll get more people addicted to heroin than if you were to just make it illegal. So is the mafia actually a good thing in that sense? Or should you legalize it and have heroin shops at every hood corner?
Well, I think, like, I don't know, but I know that cocaine is green. It's not white. Like, what comes across the border is cut with so much shit. It's literally not even... Yeah, it's green. What are you looking at me like that? It's literally green.
They take the green pigment out when they make it.
Yeah,
When they make it into the sheets.
Not real cocaine. Real cocaine is still used in hospitals as, like, some sort of numbing agent. Like, pure cocaine is green.
Yeah. But
So
you have
anything
you
that
have
comes
to-
across the border illegally is, like...
white.
Yeah, it's cut with so much, like, paint thinner and shit, it's not healthy. So if you made it legal,
it would get healthier.
would it? Or is it still totally unhealthy?
Well, that's actually one of the things that you could be probably most certain for. Is
Yeah,
that
it would be healthier.
healthier.
Yeah. Regulation.
But
would be
is
good.
it still, like, so ridiculously unhealthy?
Yeah. Well, there's different things that get introduced. For
I
one
mean,
thing,
opium, that was legal forever.
yeah,
And once it got illegal, it got really bad.
Yeah.
well,
Really? Like, now we have opioids from the centralized big pharma and then heroin.
opium was
Versus
also.
before you just smoke.
Although I will note that opium was also originally bad enough that it got the
Ruined
entire
China.
Yeah, ruined China.
Yeah,
That's a
but that's
big
also-
country to ruin.
Yeah, the biggest empire in human history for a millennia.
But that's also, they were getting screwed over by Britain, so...
Well, yeah, it was Britain that ruined
That
China
happened.
too.
Yeah,
you know, like the
100%.
second biggest empire to ever
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
Biggest by size.
Yeah,
Which is crazy. I mean, 25% of the world. That's insane.
they're
Yeah.
still
So
around
where does it
now.
go?
They're still like 17%.
Does it go USA, Britain, Rome? Is that the order?
What?
No,
No.
Mongol Empire.
Yeah, the Mongol Empire is huge.
Rome's actually
No,
not
I don't mean
that-
size. I mean, like, greatness.
Okay, yeah,
'Cause
because the
America's-
Mongol Empire only.
Yeah,
but
but America is
here's
Rome,
something
obviously.
crazy.
Then
Actually,
Britain, then Rome.
you got to see something crazy.
Rome second, Britain third.
Maybe, yeah. Britain's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, but like
They were
Rome.
also pieces of shit.
Yeah, but like Rome, come on.
Yeah, Rome's pretty dope.
Yeah,
Wait,
Rome's
there's been
way
Britain's
dope.
cool. Rome, come on.
But there's been something pretty crazy that's been noted, which is like propensity for authoritarian governments. Like even the Mongol Empire was like about the Mongol Empire, which was like
Mongol
you know you say
schmongol.
they were only there for 50 years, but the governments that are where the Mongol Empire was or around the borders where the Mongol Empire was, like are to this day way more likely to be authoritarian governments, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Really?
Like think about Russia.
Why is
Yeah.
it just left over in their genetics?
Yeah, from having to fight off the Mongols all the time.
That's really
Because it
weird.
requires a lot more central authority.
That proves,
the
collective,
Russians were
that
always
proves
been-
collective unconscious, right?
To an extent,
of
like,
course.
Yeah, the
Nothing's
Russians.
binary.
The Russians, they just don't question it. You know, they just never questioned having large central authorities because they needed it to fight off the Mongols for hundreds and hundreds of years.
That's really crazy.
So did the Arabs.
It's like what the CIA is doing, like, to us now. It's like, well, we need this thing to fight off commies.
God.
Yeah.
That's
to
crazy.
protect our borders.
Oh, look, a commie. Well, I guess we'll have to institute a new bureau.
Yeah.
Just
New
like
commies
some
are
random guy down the street.
That's what people did, dude. It like
that was the 1950s.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Like any Japanese dude just chilling in America is just for like 30 years probably was just blatantly getting racist remarks just for no reason, just for one attack in the 40s by a government that they're not even a part of.
I'm not sure how much that's related to the communism thing.
No, it's not.
It's not like
It's
there
completely
hasn't,
adjacent.
Like, literally been Chinese spies found in media outlets now.
Yeah, did you hear about the politician who married a Chinese spy? She was
big
yeah.
surprise.
Goddamn moron! Like, how did you not see that coming?
No,
Actually, no. She was there from she was in the U.S. from 9 years old on. It's so crazy.
Oh.
She had a government contract
Yeah, I know.
that paid her family so that she could live in America in a wealthy household for free, and lived in this upper class neighborhood, super super high scoring girl. Nails this senator.
That's crazy.
And she's a communist spy and gets exposed after a divorce.
That's the Chinese are the only people
That's what I'm saying.
The Chinese aren't the only people that could pull that off.
The Russians do too.
No, I'm not sure
Dude,
the
I
Russians
bet we do.
the Russians did.
Yeah.
I don't think the
100%.
Russian culture long term could pull that off. I think the Arabs could pull that off.
Martians might be doing that.
Dude, imagine.
Martian communists. There's Martian communists infiltrated in the government. Dude, there's Martian communists. The TV told me.
That's so funny.
Martian communists. That's the name of this episode.
Yeah, the Martian communists are taking over.
No, but
just have
it
that being
does seem like...
Just have that be in the thumbnail. The Martian communists
Okay,
are
Ben,
taking
if
over.
there's a collective unconscious,
No, it's like a
Ben.
Nazi, it's like a Martian, like a typical Martian.
if
With
there's a
Nazi
collective
Germany.
unconsciousness,
Yeah.
is that across the whole world, or can it be centralized to groups and then thusly ideologies?
It's mostly in
It's
groups
all,
now.
every single ring has its own level of collective of
Okay.
unconscious, right?
Like that map
Yeah.
from the last video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. The
you know
other
what we're
map,
talking about.
I actually had this other map that we didn't use, but
Either way, so
it's
it's
the one that I said looked like tits.
Hold on. Yeah, okay. So it's so there is collective unconsciousness sort of given to groups, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine it could be extrapolated that that's a factor in ideologies forming, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I forgot my point, to be honest. I think my point is we kind of have to worry about it. That's that literally could be a scientific explanation for
Don't go there.
what am I gonna say?
Don't go down the focus road, Ted.
No. I was gonna say spirits.
Oh.
Having-
yeah. Well, a lot of I think Jordan Peterson said that spirits are spirits that possess people is an interpretation of unconscious
Ideologies.
motives.
Yeah, and it's
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 a
sorta
mythological interpretation of
it's
unconscious
real,
motives.
and it was just depicted religiously and artistically as spirits overrunning groups of people back in older times, and now we kind of understand it as this psychological.
Dude, what if
sort
we're
of
all just
ideology.
completely wrong? What if religion actually does completely and unequivocally exist?
Oh, I totally believe that. I'm just trying to make it sound articulated with the knowledge we understand. That's what my point is. It's the way it was. Okay, if you described this, different people describe it differently.
Yeah.
The objective truth of this exists. It's let's say religion is this.
Yep.
And there is these things that overtake groups. Religion explains that through spirits and weird old-timey stuff. I'm trying to make it applicable to what we understand now, which is ideologies and collective unconscious and psychology, right?
Yeah.
So this is my whole theory of the reservoir, that people describe things differently across different cultures, that there's Plato's forms, there's objective truths that we explain through our own prior experience.
Yeah.
So it's just lost in translation because it's 2,000 years old.
Yeah. And on top of that, well, I guess I'm taking kind of the Christian route. It's if you don't believe in the, let's say this God does exist, this God of absolute truth, right? And let's say that he took the Christian idea of if you didn't believe in him, you were going to hell, right? What if that religion died? And all of us are damned to hell forever. Just like it has no bearing whatsoever on the real world.
Mm-hmm.
But if that was to happen, that would just be real shitty.
Yeah, that would suck.
Like there's just absolutely nothing that we could do about being damned in hell forever.
I think I would have to imagine just like in the theological perfect imagining of like what a perfect moral judgment would take circumstance into account. So if you were brought up in a religion that was, that was like evil, then maybe you would be judged by your capacity to not follow the evil tenets of that religion.
Yeah.
Rather than just, judge in an objective capacity.
Oh, so it's relative. So that's
Yeah.
like the whole thing of like men of their time almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like the freaking stupid history teacher of mine.
Yep.
Like, it's not like how far up the tower you are, it's how far you build up the tower relative to where you began.
Yep.
So like if you live in a world that's more sinful, I guess, that's down here, but you build up here, you're still better than
a dude who's just living up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hugely important. Like, for example, people like to take a shit on Thomas Jefferson because he owned slaves. It's
Yep.
like, he went from feudal Europe to America.
Yep.
You went from America to 1960s. Oh, congrats.
Slightly worse American.
Yeah.
You're tearing down the statue of one of the greatest men of the
seriously.
generation. You're actively worse.
It's like
If he may
college
be better
professors drive
America.
Yeah.
College professors drive me crazy because it's the pinnacle American representation, the pinnacle global representation as a king, of someone who sits on a throne, arrogant as hell, of which the castle they didn't lay one brick. That shit drives me nuts. It's like
just the pure academics who just learn everything about everything
and just they sit
and have no opinions of their own and just take other people's opinions, spin them off as their own, even though they don't understand the original opinion.
Yeah, it's just ideological possession, and then I'm sitting on a throne above you.
Yep.
It's so evil. A redneck with no money who buys his own house is better because he actually makes it.
Yep.
It's really disgusting. I hate that shit.
That's why I'm not going to college. I'm scared that ideology is too addicting and too consuming that...
It really is, dude. Jordan Peterson, that's why he came out the way he was, because he was a professor, and he saw this ideological possession, like...
He's still a professor.
Is he?
He
Either
still
way.
teaches a class.
I mean, it was probably on sabbatical while he was, in a coma in Moscow or whatever.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't even hear about that. He was in a coma?
Yeah, wasn't
Yeah.
What? What happened?
he? Yeah, he was really sickly for some reason.
Well, no,
Oh.
he got addicted to benzodiazepines.
Really? Painkiller? It was a painkiller, yeah.
Really?
Not exactly a painkiller, anxiety reducers. It's similar, but it's a bit different.
He got hooked on it. Oh, dude, he's gonna come up with a fire talk about that, probably.
Oh, yeah, he's the shit, man.
Well,
He's a good person.
yeah, that it does, it's a thing, though, because, here's my thing about... Jungian philosophy does not have, of all things, a very great track record with producing people that aren't anxiety-ridden and mildly schizophrenic.
Yeah, that's the problem with it.
Jung
It's like
himself
seeing Valhalla.
spent 8 years in psychosis.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's like seeing Valhalla. It's like, okay, do you want to see Valhalla, or are we not supposed to see it? It's like, do you get blinded by the sun?
Yeah. Are
No
you
one
better? Are
knows.
you better blissfully ignorant, or?
Yeah, you really don't know, but I do know that we're getting fucked every time we are
I think, to be
blissfully
fair,
ignorant,
that's a decent argument against Jungian philosophy.
But I love
is
Jung, so.
I know, but that's a decent argument we should keep in mind. Is
Yeah.
if you can't make this philosophy work without developing schizophrenia and anxiety constantly,
have this-
it's probably not the right way to
The
go.
problem is,
Yeah.
it sets in motion
Well, and that's also
the next 200 years of psychology, so it kind of works, but it's
Yeah.
like you.
But then again, it's
sacrifice
probably
yourself
not
for
the perfect.
No,
the
it's like-
absolute perfect.
yeah.
Because the perfect.
So Jung took
the-
Freud's
the-
work and made it better.
Yeah.
And it's like over time you could articulate.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
the perfect
hopefully-
human philosophy wouldn't make you schizophrenic. probably.
Hopefully, yeah, and that's exactly the point. It's because a philosophy's got to be a model. You want to be able to model, how your lifestyle, how your.
So it's like what we need to do is build on Jung and no one has in a long time.
Yeah.
We got all into behavioral psychology.
And hopefully
it's
we
due
don't
to-
just find it's a dead end where it always produces schizophrenia and anxiety.
That
Well,
would be bad.
I hope
it's-
not.
Says the anxiety-ridden individual.
That's the scary thing about like centralized authorities teaching you everything that you know. It's
Oh,
a scary
God.
thing about public school
So bad.
and like even private school to an extent because they're required to teach you a bunch of things. And like, should a government really have sovereign control over education?
No.
Probably not. You know what I
100%
mean?
not.
Sovereign control of the future ideology of
No,
humanity
that's
on
an
a
easy one.
nationwide scale? Probably not. It's probably a bad idea.
That's really
No, it
easy.
seems fine to me. Go for it.
Yeah. So like, why are we still like allowing our kids?
Why
to
are we
go
still
into
paying
public
taxes? This is what I'm saying.
Well, taxes is a different thing.
Well, how do you get rid of it? You don't pay taxes because obviously
go to
playing
jail.
the game doesn't work
Well, you go to jail if you
unless
don't
it's a
pay
mass
taxes.
scale deal. Because they can't arrest everyone theoretically.
Well, I'd rather not. The U.S. government is great. It just needs some reform. It has a lot of great ideology.
Look, okay, playing the game hasn't worked.
No.
Reform can happen, playing the game or not. I think it's about time we don't play the game. I can't even say that now because you have to put a mask on. Playing the game hasn't worked. I don't know. It's not like not paying taxes has faults.
Yeah.
We have to start articulating a real plan because playing the game doesn't work.
Here's a model that I think could work. I think you should be able to take a base, let's say like a base 15% yearly tax.
I was
That
thinking
goes
5.
All right, 15%.
Yeah.
That's enough to pay for roads, armies, NASA,
Easily.
bunch of cool research,
Oh, nice.
academia, not like academia is in like
Yeah, I know.
school, but academia
Yeah,
is
so
in
you need
like
a flat.
studying
Essentially, you
philosophical
need to
topics.
organize
Hear
like
me out, though.
like
I think that every person should be required to pay like a 30% tax, but they should be able to vote on where that tax goes. So you already have all the infrastructure, you have the roads, you have all the stuff that a government should do, but all the stuff that a government really shouldn't do, like obviously police is a part of that too. All the stuff that a government really shouldn't do, education, reforming public companies, like unjust legislation, we'll say, all of that tax should be voted on by the people. I think that's kind of a cool compromise because it eliminates a lot of the legislative inefficiencies. How we get there is a really odd.
So what essentially you're trying to do is you're trying to separate the concept of public funds, as a whole, from the concept of the way we spend public funds.
We have
which,
no say in it whatsoever. We
good
elect
luck.
other people.
Good
We
luck,
elect other
but
people to
I
decide
believe
for
in
us.
representatives
and I believe
public funds.
I believe in the existence of public funds myself. I mean, it's a part of a society.
Basically, I just think that because of the way government is set up opposite to business, they're incentivized to spend the least amount of money and launder as much of it as possible.
Businesses are also incentivized to spend the least amount of money and launder
let
all of
me
it as
restate that.
possible.
Well, a government.
They're
a government isn't-
incentivized to, with the same money, make the worst possible product. Like, if you have...
They're only incentivized to do that if you assume
They
the
can't make more
structure
for
of the
doing-
government is failing, which whether it is or not, the answer then is don't have a government be failing rather than don't have public funds. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because
I can't
at
put
the
my
end of the
words
day,
together right now.
our government, in terms of its basic structure, is doing just fine. It's providing roads. It's providing education, which is kind of bad.
No, the
It's
roads are
providing
bad, the
police-
education's bad, the policing's bad.
Well, military is good.
I mean, the roads are pretty decent when you think about it.
Yeah.
There's roads.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool because there's a lot of roads.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's pretty cool. The military is nice. NASA needs
Military's a
some
bit
improvement.
The military's pretty bloated though, and actually
No,
still
the whole
bloated, yeah.
government's bloated. Look,
I just think you should be able
although
to
the
vote.
military
the government is incentivized to keep as much of the money as they can as possible because there's no profit off of
No, they're not. They can take on as much debt as they want.
they're not incentivized to do that because the whole point of representative democracy is that the government's incentivized to do
Is to be voted in.
to at the very the government's incentivized to at the very least be looking like they're getting as much done as possible. You know what I mean? You can say those are two different things, and they are.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as just being incentivized to do the worst thing possible with the same amount of money.
Like a business is. Because that's, they're not incentivized to create the worst product. They're incentivized to have the most profit.
Yeah.
No, but a
businesses are
business is also
to have the most
incentivized to
profit.
create the best product.
Yeah, but they're
Certainly.
incentivized to have the most profit first, then the
Yes.
best product.
Because if you have the best product, you have the most profit. But those two are kind of
Dude, I literally
adjacent.
can't put my words together right now.
I know, it's just getting too... You can't go on podcast past the 3-hour
Yeah,
mark,
I'm
man. You gotta
realizing
cut
that.
it off.
Yeah.
I'm kind of vibing.
Dude, you're vibing. I can't put my words together right now.
I'm starving. I got off work, and I
Let me
wanted to
just
go
try
to
and figure
sleep.
this out. Hold on.
Yeah. I don't see how.
I don't know. Basically, it's like the more money you give to governments historically, the more bloated they become and the less gets done.
That's true.
And like, if you have a certain flat rate, you essentially are able to like test whether or not they're spending the money correctly. Like a low flat rate, because you know, likely if there was like some proposed like if you did the numbers communally and proposed like a reform, if you know that this should be good enough and they don't do it, then you know the answer is that they're
Like our
That's true, but why don't you just propose a reform and then it doesn't even require a tax modification? You can just, like...
propose a reform to have
Yeah.
that money spent more effectively.
yeah.
Because that's
Rather
definitely
just, like, I just
get-
don't think that the government can spend money better than the people.
they can. They
So
can.
why give them more? That makes no sense. Put
Because
down
we
like
already
five
They
do.
can
It
actually,
That doesn't
because-
make sense. Give more of it back in the hands of the people who know how to spend the money the best.
Well, it's a
That-
lot.
I don't think
it's
that's-
really hard to take
like,
power away
people-
from a government.
Okay,
point.
I think a good thing to remember is the people may know how to spend money the best, but a person doesn't know how to spend money the best. That's
Yeah.
not true. So,
No individual person knows how to spend
well,
the
money's
entirety
like
of
So
the
the-
federal
collective
government's
thing.
budget the best.
so the
Like the
point,
market is collective.
the point is that when you have private funds, if you imagine you have only private funds, well, things fall apart pretty quickly because single people have too many competing interests to be very effective on a societal scale.
Oh, the military does a really good job of this, actually. So the way the
Yeah,
military...
they shoot people when they have too many competing interests.
No, not the military in general. I mean the military in spending government funds as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
So what they do, let's say the U.S. Army needs like 10,000 guns. They go and they post it on a website. There's a movie called War Dogs made about this very thing. They post it on their government website, and they're like, hey, the person who can get us the most of these guns the quickest wins this contract for this amount of money. And people are incentivized to pay up till their profit margin to get these guns as fast as possible to the U.S. government. And that should be implemented across the board instead of having these government employees that do the roads and get paid by the hours and stuff like that. They should be, well, the roads are kind of a bad example, but like,
because those are contract.
yes,
Hey,
but
did you feed
those-
the dog?
Yeah, I did. We're out for the dog. I forgot to text you.
Okay, I got more food when I was.
but that should be more widely implemented
Yeah,
in
but
our
like
current state.
contracting roads also sucks.
Wait, did I have
It
refrigerator
does,
items
but
that
it's
need to go
not
in the
nearly as
fridge?
bad as having bloated,
Yeah,
laundered.
probably, but just give them. The market's such a simpler answer than that.
Yeah, you're right, but how do you take power away from a government? You either revolt
Yes.
or you revolt. And revolting generally leads to like 5 or 6 generations of really hard times. And I would rather
No.
not have hard
What are you
times.
talking about? The American Revolution was like the beginning of good
But
times.
very hard
That was A, pretty hard times, but B, we got lucky. Most revolutions are a lot tougher than that. But we basically only got away with that because we were in the peripheries of the country. If you were in England
Yeah,
and
you
you tried to
would.
do the same thing, you would have the English Civil War, which was 5 or 6 generations of constant constant bloodshed that didn't really get anywhere.
Yeah. We were basically the only revolution that actually led
The
somewhere
social
good.
contract
Think
is
about the French
based
Revolution.
on threat of revolution. Like you have to enact that. when it's necessary, or else the social contract is broken.
Well, I would argue it's not quite necessary yet because we haven't had our rights infringed at a global scale yet. Our basic human rights.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the
right to
perspective
speech.
thing. That's
Like,
the perspective thing.
To
How
be
about right to
honest,
oxygen?
America to this day is still the best country to live in. So I would argue that a revolution just isn't necessary yet.
What about right to like the amount of oxygen you'd like to breathe?
Yeah, if that were ever to get justified or like taken away.
Let's talk about masks.
Oh my God, Ted, come on.
What do you mean, come on?
Oh my God.
How? I can't breathe the amount of oxygen I want.
Well, then take off the mask.
You can't.
You're not going to get arrested for not taking off the
Yes,
mask.
you are, dumbass.
There's precedent for it in the more extreme countries like Australia.
Yeah, but we live in America.
Okay. All right, so you want to wait 10 years and then revolt? That's your point?
Well, if
That would actually not be. Why would that be worse? Because a revolt is like the worst case scenario. You can just do that.
All right, I
whenever.
agree with that. Right now, I think we could have a withhold of taxes.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't know.
Or just everyone collectively pays like 8% flat rate of taxes.
You hungry, Landon? You guys want some brats?
It's up to you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I
In a couple
want
minutes.
some
It'll
brats.
take me a little while, yeah.
Okay.
All right. We'll do the podcast until the bots are ready.
Well, like, essentially, it's like you can't wait. You should theoretically
Think about this,
attempt
though.
to not wait till the enemy's at your door to start fighting back.
Okay. Think about this, though. A flat 8% tax rate, if we all by somehow agree that that's a good idea,
Yeah.
that's like a 70% cut in what the federal government brings in per year.
Mm-hmm.
There will be police at your door immediately, nationwide, if that were to ever happen
Yes.
in reality. Are you gonna?
First of all,
That would be the kickstart of
First of
this
all, another
revolution. That
revolt,
isn't
right, yeah, like,
that
it's
isn't
like-
necessary
Well,
yet.
It's not necessary yet, and he's
Okay.
actually right about that. But
Sure, I agree, but like it's more like it's worrisome.
Yeah, but that
like-
would kickstart.
Yeah, there's worrisome.
Here's the
things.
thing: is I believe that revolutions should be are justified morally if someone's knocking on your door.
Yeah.
So like, if the police knocks on your door, then it's revolt time.
Yeah, but if you
No.
if you do something to make the police knock at your door,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't buy the police knocking on your door and asking for money. That's not revolt time. That's
I don't think. First of all, they wouldn't. American police wouldn't.
no, they might not.
'Cause, yeah, they
Well, I
would.
mean, the police do kind of suck as a whole, though. But yeah,
European police would because there's no guns.
yeah, we would just shoot the door much faster.
yeah, dude, I imagine being a cop in Texas and trying to collect income tax.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm just yeah. Well,
Which is how it should be. It's like, look, they can either if we crunch the numbers and figure out, well, you need this much money, you have a bunch of bloated shit that can die, we don't care, cut away the fat off the steak.
You know how much money the government needs? Sorry to cut you off, but do you know how much money the federal government needs to keep at its current spending right now?
How much?
49% from each American in the United States.
Yeah, bullshit.
We take on a lot of debt per year. A lot of debt.
that's
You don't know.
objectively
either, dude.
true, but the
I
problem
don't know,
is
and
it
neither do you.
introduces. Well, it's true that we take on. No, it's objectively true that by numbers, by the presuppositions that are given by modern economics, we take on debt. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one of the things about the presuppositions of modern economics. They don't make much sense.
No.
There's like a world debt. What is it, like $300 trillion?
Yeah.
Who is that owed to? The Martian communists?
Yeah.
Well, it's,
No, but
that
seriously,
doesn't get canceled
Look,
because it all has to do with
the
private
government doesn't
companies.
represent us.
Yeah.
And technically, they're owed to the world's banks. Technically.
Okay.
That doesn't
yeah.
mean anything,
Let's
though.
buy into that.
You know, that's relying on presuppositions. It makes sense, but from a real world perspective,
Doesn't make any
It
sense.
doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah. Now. Yeah. So yeah, by that perspective, yeah, we would need the government spending way more money than it's taking in, obviously. But the trick of that is, if we examine that in terms of things that are applicable to the real world, is that really a thing?
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Like, I don't know how to put this exactly. In terms of real world value movement, I'm not sure how you can really consider that to be true. I mean, the value's not coming from anywhere, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. I can explain where it's coming from.
Alright.
So, big companies like Apple, Facebook, Google, Chinese companies like Alibaba and Testeg and stuff like that, they all buy American debt. So they give the federal government money, and they get a 2% return on it over the course of 30 years.
Yeah.
So, in theory... Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. That's where the money is going. So that's who if the U.S. were to say default on their debts, all of those companies would be out all of their cash reserves, and that would crash, obviously, the entire world economy.
Yeah, it's
and
a bubble.
Would be very bad.
Right, it's a bubble.
And it's very bad.
It's a bubble, but it's not. That's not real value because it's a bubble. Because a bubble by definition isn't real value. That's what makes it a bubble.
Yeah.
But it is a bubble, which is also very dangerous.
In theory, it is a
you would
real
immediately
bubble.
collapse that bubble right away. Just to be clear.
If I held taxes.
Yes.
If you held that many taxes, even if there wasn't a bubble, you'd crash the world economy.
Yes. In an instant.
Okay, that sounds good.
I mean, then nobody would have jobs, and we'd be pushed back into the dark ages. Not dark ages, but like the relative dark ages.
I mean, it'd be a depression at the very least. And like
worse
the biggest
than 08.
depression.
Yeah, by far, like 60 to 70%, like unemployment.
Yeah, because you'd have to restructure the entire economy right then and there. And if you couldn't, no one would have any jobs.
Which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing.
Yeah, it's
but
basically
it would
a test of that. It's like the government would have to restructure themselves around a smaller amount that's more fair to the people, and if they don't, it fails, which it would fail.
They would fail.
I know. Which it's like, I feel like...
Why would you don't want to incite that, though. You don't want to incite failure to prove a point.
Yeah, because there isn't really a point yet. It's not to a point where they're spending, or we're giving
Everyone would have more money.
No.
You would pay less on income tax.
The millennials are the richest generation in the world when they're 60.
Ted, you would pay less on income tax, but no one would have any jobs because the economy would collapse.
Yeah, you would have way less income because the fair market would value skills less effectively.
Well, think about it. The economy is relying on an expectation of a certain amount of money to be delivered every year. And that's not a little amount of money. That's trillions of dollars. If you suddenly change the expected income of the economy, if there's trillions of dollars that's supposed to move this way in the economy, and then that disappears all of a sudden, the gap between expectation and reality being $3 trillion would be enough to collapse the structure of the economy.
Let me break it down from a more real world perspective. So let's say 8% everybody in the U.S. pays. The U.S. immediately day one defaults on all of their debt. Apple, Facebook, Google, any employer or any subsect of employer who buys U.S. debt, including nations, loses all of their cash and cash reserves. Okay. Then what happens is they can't pay their employees, right? Or actually, something happens before that. All of the products that they buy for their company to run, they stop buying because they can't afford to run business anymore. Then they lay off their employees. Then the companies that they supply lay off their employees. Then what happens is the vast majority of the people in this economy, hypothetically, lose their jobs. And this isn't just big companies. This is any company who uses any big company's resources at all completely loses that. Internet providers.
Here, look at it like this.
Yeah. If they all lose their jobs, nobody spends any money, and the economy shrinks in size to the point where it's not sustainable. And that's when a government revolution is actually justifiable and happens.
And regardless of whether it happens, the system collapses. But
wait, why does Apple go under?
Here, let me just...
Because they lose all their cash.
Let's just think about the Great Depression.
Because their cash is all debt-based?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I hate that. So
I hate that too. But at the same time, the structure is entirely made around that. If you don't provide a real structure,
so basically,
to replace
eventually, it might be worth doing this, but it's obviously not right now.
yeah,
Not even close right now.
Because
No.
if you don't have another structure,
All right, so
that
how
can
do
be
we
implemented
address-
immediately, you'll
Yeah.
have no structure.
So
and
that's
then
not
it's all
impossible.
chaos.
That's not impossible.
It's not impossible.
It's not. It
It's
really isn't.
so difficult.
If like the tides turn, like it gets worse and our ID gets better, it can meet in the middle, and then it would be possible.